Having a tool like Application Insights to see what's going on inside of your production processes is super useful, but it does require that you put log messages in just about everywhere. Kind of wish there was another way around that. Let's mash on that. Hi everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Asp.Net Monsters. In today's episode, I'm going to talk a little bit about this OzCode Production Debugger. So full disclosure, I've done a couple of webinars for OzCode on this, so I'm not entirely unbiased in my opinions on it, but I do think it's kind of a cool tool. So basically the idea is this. You've got an application, it's running in production, and something is awry with it, be it that it's throwing exceptions, or be it that it's just doing weird stuff. It can be really difficult to reproduce that in a development environment or a QA environment, because a lot of times it could be like data specific or environment specific or something like that. So it would be nice to be able to like debug the production environment. And there is the ability to do that in Visual Studio, where you can attach a debugger to like a running process in Azure, like something on app services.
Sometimes it even works.
Yeah, I was going to say like it works maybe 20% of the time.
Yeah.
And anytime it does work, I'm always like, oh, it's working. And because it is a breaking debugger, it means that if you've got 20 people who are hitting that breakpoint using your production site, you are going to have an impact on those users. So OzCode is a company that kind of came out of building an extension for Visual Studio that helps you with debugging. So it kind of surfaces a bunch more information, and it does things like if you have a collection, you can write a filter against that collection. So it makes that a lot easier, that process of being able to debug. And they have taken kind of a similar idea and they have put it out into this production debugger. So the way this thing works is that you add it into your app service, and I'm using app service here. It doesn't have to be an app service. You can do this against like virtual machine-based apps. You can do it against app service. You can do it against Docker containers. You can do it on AWS and Azure, and maybe GCP as well. I don't know if they have anything on GCP yet. But the idea is that this goes in and it instruments your code, but it does it in a really interesting way, because normally if you're going to instrument the code, you would do things like in the way that Application Insights does, where you would instrument SQL connections and HTTP connections, and you get dependencies, and you better get information like that. Well, the way this thing works is there's kind of two modes to it. So the first one is this errors mode here. And what it does is it looks for exceptions to happen in your code. And the first time it encounters an exception, it goes in and it like instruments all the code. And then it waits for the exception to occur again. And once it has captured all the information about that exception, then it de-instruments the code. So it means that you only have this overhead of instrumentation one time when you go through the application. And then the next time you run into it, hopefully the information will be shown here. So I don't have the demonstration for errors here, but I do have this kind of new feature that they have, which is these things called trace point sessions. So I have up here this eShop on web application here, and I made a few changes to it in like the silliest way possible. So I added a shipping column to this to get the pricing. But if you take a look over here, I've ordered 3 of these units at $8.50 a piece, and somehow my subtotal is $11.50. My shipping is 15 cents when it should be at least $1. My tax is 58 cents, which I mean could be about right for about a 5% tax. And then my total is $29, which again could be right. Seems close enough.
I mean, it's close enough.
Yeah, but obviously this is not ideal because all the numbers are weird. So what you can do is you can take this OzCode Production Debugger and you can go and tell it to instrument a piece of code. So I'm already running one here, so I'm gonna stop this one because it kind of spoils the fun of this. And I'm going to go back to trace points, and I'm going to create a new trace point session here. I call it So once this is plugged in, and hopefully it works, there's still, I wouldn't say early in the development of this, but there's still a few little places where things don't work quite as I would like them to work. Okay, so you get this screen here, and you can go and search your source code. So what this does is it goes and looks at the running code that you have, and it decompiles it into something that we can search for basically however the thing is working. So I think this was in a thing called basket view model. Basket view model. Okay. Uh-oh. So I probably don't have, looks like I don't have this service running at the moment. I don't know how I broke that. I guess I can show you what it looks like to configure it now. I just got to check and make sure. So I'm supposed to have an OzCode agent token, which I have. Let's go and see what the deal is with it. I break the token. Looks like it's the same token. It ends with a C03. Everybody knows if it ends with the same characters, you'll find. Yeah, so that bit
That's
is
how
right.
GUIDs work.
Yeah. And you would deploy it as an extension here. So that's available, but there is an update, so maybe I'll just go and I'll run the update here. So I did install this a couple of weeks ago, so it might just be that it needs a poke in the right direction. But anyway, hopefully this thing will install in the background. And the idea here is you can type in like the code that you're interested in searching, and it will go off and it will find that little piece of code and it will add instrumentation to it for a certain number of executions. So it will surface what all the local variables are, what all the like calls are that it made. So it means that it's really easy to kind of go and poke and see what the problem is. I still don't think I have any agents attached here.
So does it need to restart your app once you instrument something like that?
No, so it doesn't. It does it live. So it doesn't need to do any restarting of the application. I mean, when you do the initial install, it does restart the application and all of that. But in theory, you would do that kind of like right at the beginning of when you were deploying your application. So you could just deploy it, and because it's not usually running instrumentation, the overhead is so low that it doesn't really do anything.
Yeah, that's cool. So I know this was a while ago and it's probably improved, but there were times when I've had the App Insights piece that does instrumentation to add like the SQL command stuff to it was adding like a significant amount of overhead to my startup. It was taking almost a minute to start up my app, which was
interesting.
Really poor. Yeah,
I haven't seen it be quite that bad. Okay, so it looks like the agent has got itself connected now, so I could give it an update. So I've already forgotten what it's called. Something view model. Basket. So it's gone off. It's decompiled all of that. We can see little things like, hey, that tax rate is actually set to 5% right off the bat. And then I can like put breakpoints in like here. And this is a trace point, so I can just have it print out like, hey, the subtotal is, and then I can put in the variable name, subtotal. And it's going to instrument that, so I can immediately start collecting this. And I've got to go back out to the app and see if I can refresh this view model. It might be all jacked up because I restarted the app service. We'll give it a shot and see. So the resolving host part, I didn't accidentally kick the connection out of my little Raspberry Pi, which happens at least once a day. All right, so finally got itself back online here. So let's go add that mug back in here. I think I had 3 of those. Check out. Okay, good. So then we got these taxation things here. Then so hopefully if I come back over here, this instrumentation has picked up that information. So it's gone in and it's shown me what these values are at this point in time. So I can see like, hey, this is what my subtotal is. This is what my tax is. So I surface just those individual little pieces in my message. But if you look over here, I'm going to zoom in a little bit here because it's hard to see. So if you look over here, you can see what the local variables are. So I can see that, like, hey, my shipping is 1, my tax is 42.5 cents, and my subtotal is say 50, and I can poke around to kind of like all the local variables. This is a really simplistic example here, but it does mean that I can go and I can take a look at, like, hey, well, what items did people have in their basket at that time? What's the unit price? So I know that, well, the unit price is being passed through properly. I know the quantity is being passed through properly. The shipping price is being passed through properly. So then it lets me kind of narrow down what the problem is. So I can see things like the shipping here is, what is that? What did my shipping end up being? My shipping ended up being 1, but I think that's fine because I only had 1 item in for this particular example. Let's go back to a different example here. So my shipping was 3, so that seems right. But then I can kind of like go in and figure out all the problems that I've had with this. I might have deployed a fixed version with this. I think the original problems that I had with this were just a order of operations problem. But I think this is a pretty useful tool, especially if you're in an environment where production is difficult to get at and debug. It has all sorts of added features in it that I have yet to explore, things like PII redaction. So even if you have something like SIN numbers or personal information in here, you can set it up so it will redact that information. And then even more fun is that I have this particular demo set up to feed these points out into application insights. So there's always a little bit of latency on this, but let's go take a look at the application insights for this one here. That's not what I wanted to see. That's what I wanted to see. So let's go and take a look at, I always click on the wrong one of these. I just clicked on the wrong one of them. Logs is what I want. And for some reason, Application Insights has decided that it is always going to show this screen now to me. No matter how many times I tell it to.
There's a toggle there that says always show queries.
And I turn it off, and then it comes back the next time. I think
it's a lie, like the remember me checkbox.
Do you have that problem too? Like,
yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, it was just me that had that. So this is everything we've had in the last 24 hours. These are kind of boring traces here, but we might be able to kind of grab that live metrics view here.
To wait 8 seconds.
10 seconds on mine. 10 seconds. I don't have a thread ripper, so things take a lot longer over here. All right, so we can go and refresh this page. Hopefully that ends up pushing. So it pushed out some information here, and then it should push out some information over here too. So yeah, so it's going to push stuff right out to Application Insights. So this is really useful for, maybe you need to debug something and push information to Application Insights for an hour or 2 hours or something like that, and then turn it off again. So this one is pretty cool. So that pushing to Application Insights required just a little plugin inside of my code. So that one did require like a rebuild and a recompile and a redeploy and all of that, but it'll pick up any messages that I put in here. So if I wanted to edit my task here and add an additional breakpoint, checkbox.
This is really cool.
Just a couple more times, and there we go. It started to print out the text right over here too. Again. Oh my gosh, that was way too much zoom.
This is with that horizontal scroll bar when you zoom in the portal.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. I think it's kind of a cool piece of functionality. I don't know what they're charging for it, but...
I was just going to ask, this doesn't look like a free service.
No, I mean, I have used it for free, but obviously I'm not the person who should be talking about this. Let's go see what they're charging for. OzCode Production Debugger. I really feel like it needs a new name too. It needs like a cool code name or something. Pricing. OzCode Production Debugger. Let's see what we got here. Okay, so they have an always free tier, which is pretty awesome. 5 users, 100 monthly agents.
That looks like a pretty healthy tier.
Yeah, wow. I think you'd have to be doing a lot of stuff to to hit above that. Oh, I guess it isn't to the PII redaction. That feels like it might be worth it for a bunch of people.
Yeah, for sure. That's really cool.
I'll buy it now and see what it would cost me. Production Debugger, $600 a year for an agent. I don't know what an agent is. Whether that, like, if I had 6 app services, is that one agent or? I don't know. Probably
cool.
Some good questions, but yeah, I'm pretty enthusiastic about it. I think it's a pretty cool tool, and that it's going to open up some windows for people to be able to debug a little bit more easily into their production environments. And the other thing that you can do, like I'm using the hosted version of this, but you can actually install this on premise as well. So it will send reporting up to your on-premise instance. So if you're running inside of a protected environment and you're really concerned about leaking information, you can run an agent inside of your network.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, very neat. I mean, that scenario you described at the beginning where, there's that thing that you can only really seem to reproduce in production. I've definitely been there before, and there's never really an easy solution, especially if you don't already have the logging in place. So
yeah, a lot of times it ends up being like add logging, redeploy, hope that it happens again.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so this definitely solves a real problem.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us on today's episode. Remember to like, comment, and share, and we'll see everybody next week.
Bye.
Bye.